Good morning, everyone. Welcome back for our regular weekly developer AMA. My name is Marty, also known as Alcatraz. I'm the lead designer at Raini Studios, working on our flagship title, The Lords of Light. How's everyone doing today?
Pretty good, Marty. How are you, man?
Uh, as a industry veteran with many years of Unity experience under my belt, I'm doing great. It's been a hell of a week. Um, but yeah, we can touch on that. How you doing, Draz?
Yeah, good. Thanks, guys. It'd be interesting to hear what your take is on that whole Unity thing. I didn't get to catch all that spaces, but it sounded pretty interesting.
What's the rating on this AMA? Like, how much am I allowed to swear? Like, what's the ruling there before like
Whatever.
YouTube? Like, I don't know.
I mean, we don't have monetization on this channel, so
Oh, good.
Yeah,
It's
good.
absolutely fucked. There we go. Nah. Yeah, we can obviously touch on a bit more detail. We'll do a bit of a recap, but yeah, just my heart goes out to the thousands of game developers around the world that this is affecting at the moment. Especially all of us right now who are just in an absolute state of limbo where Unity put the announcement out, I believe it was last Tuesday. They doubled down on it 24 hours later. They've come back over the weekend saying like, "Hey guys, so apparently you're all confused," and we're just like, "Well, no, it's not confusion. You've bent us over." And now we're just waiting to see where things go from here. So yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
what is the short summary of what exactly is happening? They're obviously charging money for something that's going to impact a lot of people, but what's like in our
Yeah,
case, I
cool.
suppose, what does that mean?
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so I'll briefly touch on what is happening, and also just how that affects Rainy Studios for the various projects that we have going on. Um, and probably just to preface this, because some people will just hear the very first bit and not listen to the rest of the ramble. This will not affect Rainy the Lords of Light in any way, shape, or form. The team is still full steam ahead for everything we've been working on for the past little while, including mobile porting, localization, preparing for the World Championships, getting formations ready. All that is unaffected in any way, shape, or form by all this, basically. But yeah, so Unity came out last week and basically said that in addition to the like subscription fees, which we've been paying for years, depending on the size of the studio or the developer, you'd be on either a personal, a plus, or a pro account. So in addition to that, or they're removing the plus account, so it's now significantly more expensive for developers who are in that sort of semi indie going professional sort of stage, which is kind of annoying because Unity for a long time was seen as a really good stepping stone for newer developers. A lot of schools teach it, a lot of universities like use it and stuff like that. We now have to pay Unity what's called a runtime fee, which is a fee that we pay based on every install that a game gets. So, and they use that term. They're very specifically install. So it's not based on how many sales you make or even how many downloads you make. It is every time that the runtime, which is part of the build that we send out, regardless of platform. So this will affect us on both mobile as well. Every time that is installed, we have to pay Unity up to 20 cents. So, for example, like right here, I've got my main desktop that I use, I've got my laptop, and downstairs I've got a Steam Deck. If I was to buy from January 1st, if I was to buy a game that a developer has made with Unity, um, I could cost that developer 60 cents just by playing their game. Um, does that is that going to break some studios? Well, bigger studios, no. Although the fact that this is also retroactive, so this affects any game built with Unity. So games that got released 2 years ago now have to start paying a monthly runtime fee, just out of nowhere. Which I'm not a lawyer, but doesn't even seem legal to me to be able to just retroactively change the terms of service for a product like that. I know there are a lot of studios looking into the legality of what Unity has announced.
Mhm.
Um, but there's also just a wide range of developers and studios, particularly in the mobile space, where mobile does usually rely on getting high volume of downloads, where this could literally bankrupt their studios. I know there was, I'll try and link it on Telegram and Discord a bit later on, but there was a really awesome podcast that came out about 24 hours after the announcement was dropped by Two and a Half Gamers. That was talking about it, and they had spoken to a hyper casual studio where their monthly bill to use Unity was going to go from $200 a month to $178,000 per month.
Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know any business on the planet that can handle, like, I don't know what percentage it is, but like, you know, an extra $170,000 plus a month, like being added to your cost of just keeping the doors open. That is a drastic amount of money. Um, so, and the interesting part as well, like most developers, myself included, want Unity to succeed. We want Unity to be profitable because it's a symbiotic relationship. We need Unity to survive and add new features and support new platforms so that we can do what we do, which is make video games. So from that perspective, we all want Unity to make money, but not like this. Not when, you know, there's a very real world now where you could release a game and you could try to pull the game from all the stores when you hit 150,000 downloads. Um, or you're there trying to, you don't even, because of this vague aspect to it being an install count, there's no real way to budget for this. A lot of studios are doing it really rough at the moment, and that's ignoring the fact that, if we're on major platforms, it's not really a trade secret to know that a lot of platforms take a 30% cut. Like Steam, for example, takes 30% of every dollar that gets spent there before that money even sees the developers. We then potentially have to pay publishers. We have to pay, this new Unity tax. We pay, taxation based on where in the world we're based. Like, it doesn't actually, for every dollar spent on a video game on like Steam, it not a lot of that actually reaches the studio. And that's, yeah, this is just basically throwing a huge spanner in the works. So yeah, as I was saying at the start, this will not in any way, shape, or form affect RTLOL. So one of the things that Unity has done, I don't want to say graciously, because that's not the right word, but every other word I want to use has 4 letters, and I really shouldn't use them. But basically, the one allowance they've given is that this won't kick in until a game has received 200,000 downloads and generated 200,000 US in revenue. Raini at the moment is nowhere near the 200,000 download mark, so we're fine in that regard. Having said that, could that change when we move to mobile? Absolutely. So we are like being very careful around what we do in that regard. What this will probably mean, though, is that we need to actually go back to the drawing board a little bit for games like LOC, for Legends of Chromatica. That was planned to be a Unity title. It hadn't even crossed our minds to look at using a different engine. Having said that, yeah, we're going to have to take a very close look at that and basically rerun the math around what would take for that game to be a commercial, profitable success. Now that the whole state of the game engine market has completely been thrown on its head. And as I mentioned, the most recent correspondence we've had from Unity was basically "Oh, you're all confused. Just sit tight. We'll explain it better." The damage is already, by the way, the damage is already done. Most studios, like there's a group of like 20 big mobile studios who are all in the process of like turning off Unity ads and moving away from Unity. Like the damage is done. The trust is irrevocably destroyed. The people who are still going to be using Unity, such as us for RTLOL, are already planning on how we can move away from it for future titles. There are studios that have games that have been in development for several years that haven't been released yet, and now they just don't know what to do. They're generally concerned that they could release the game and Unity could bankrupt them in the process. So yeah, it's a very rough situation for any or for a majority of game studios right now. The most recent number I've seen is Unity is used for 70% of released titles. I don't know how much that is like the mobile base, but I would have to imagine if you look at, say, the top 100 mobile games right now, including big ones, Genshin Impact, Pokemon Go, Call of Duty Mobile, are all Unity games. So yeah, this is, I can't even imagine how this made it through. Unity CEO JR is a former EA executive, which probably tells you everything you need to know about him. But yeah, it's a pretty rough situation. The only other thing I'll just mention, and I've made this abundantly clear on all my personal socials and stuff like that as well. Unity has about 7,000 employees. a very, very large percentage of them had nothing to do with making this decision. They are incredibly talented, incredibly passionate individuals who just want to build the best game engine on the planet and enable us developers to do what we do and make amazing experiences for everyone to enjoy. Um, in no way, shape, or form should any of your frustrations or anger or disappointment or anything be taken out on any of them. They're just trying to do their jobs. Kudos to the Unity employees who are willing to jump on Twitter Spaces or social media at the moment. Got to be honest, I'd probably just, if I worked at Unity right now, I'd probably just go radio silent. There was a threat that caused some of the Unity campuses in the US to get closed down last week. Don't do that. That's just, yeah. It's a very unfortunate situation for everyone around. But yeah, at the end of the day, we do what we do, and yeah, we'll keep an eye on the updates from Unity, and if there are any changes to what that may mean for RTLOL or other like Rainy titles moving forwards, then absolutely we'll address that as well.
I mean, we don't have to make this obviously about the whole thing about Unity, but what were they in trouble with money with this change? I mean, and surely all this blowback's going to have to, at some point, if all like 70% of games are using it or something, and people are now trying to move away from it actively, they're going to suffer.
I don't want. There's a lot of conspiracy theories going around as to why they would actually do this. I don't know if any of them have any basis in truth whatsoever. The more interesting one I saw was that this was a way to basically allow Apple to buy Unity at a discount. Since Apple since the Vision Pro coming out next year, like Unity is the main engine they're using for game development for it. But I mean,
Sure.
I'm not going to touch on like
Sure.
Unity's. I don't know enough about like Unity's financials or stuff like that. I can understand them wanting a bigger piece of the pie when they do create such an important piece of the game development pipeline.
Yeah.
And a lot of developers being able to get away with paying very, very little for such an important tool. To put it in perspective, Unreal Engine, which is arguably like, if there's a top two game engines out there right now, it would be Unity and Unreal. For Unreal Engine 5, you pay nothing for the first $1 million in revenue, and then you pay 5% like rev share after that first million. Although they've also they have, I should say, it's not they've added, they've always had this in their terms of service. If they do make any changes to their TOS that you don't agree with, all you have to do there basically is just don't upgrade to the next version. And that TOS change will not affect you. So in their TOS, they've always had a clause written that prevents them doing what Unity is doing right now with this whole retroactive change that they're making.
Yeah.
So,
like you say, maybe it's a scare thing to for some other agenda, and once that agenda's done, go back to normality and off we go again with happiness. But obviously, no trust left in that.
No, that's the big thing. The damage is done. Speaking personally, like not as an employee of Raini Studios, but myself for personal projects that I choose to work on, Unity would be like literally at the bottom of my list now when it comes to selecting game engines. And that's annoying because myself and a lot of members of our team have put many, many years into learning the intricacies, the ins and outs of using Unity. Before Rainy Studios, I worked as a consultant for many years. Most of the projects I worked on there were Unity-based projects. I've got friends at other studios. I've got friends that build tools and plugins specifically for Unity. So it's not even just the game studios that are affected. There's a whole ecosystem of creators and developers that get affected directly and indirectly by what they're doing right now. So it's
Sure.
It's been a very interesting week, to say the least.
I bet. But I mean, it sounds like from what you said in other things as well that Raini's also familiar with Unreal as well, so that is another option moving forward for the LOC in games like that.
Yeah. So Unreal is a very viable option for us. There are pros and cons of why you would choose Unity and Unreal and stuff like that, but for most games, really it just comes down to a personal preference thing. So from that perspective, if we do need to make the jump to Unreal, there would be very minimal downtime for us in doing so. It still works on the same platforms. We can still develop for iOS, Android, Windows, Mac, all the same things there as well.
Yeah, but your preference would be Unity if they weren't trying to screw everybody over.
yeah, if we had this conversation a week ago, then yeah, it'd be like Unity, primarily because well, there were reasons why Unity was just better for what we were doing. It's a little bit quicker for some sort of prototyping and stuff like that. And at least in Australia, hiring Unity developers is a bit easier than hiring Unreal developers. Unity was a free engine for a lot longer than Unreal was, even though Unreal has been around for longer. It goes back into like the 90s. If you trace it right back to the first Unreal game, obviously. Um, but yeah, Unity having that free personal tier for so long meant that a lot of educational platforms used it. Which in turn leads to a lot of like YouTube content, a lot of Udemy content. So like Unity from that early decision created this welcoming ecosystem for developers to come in and build their skill set up using Unity. And then yeah, like literally a decade. Like Unity's been around as a tool for 12 years. It's been around as a good tool for about 5 or 6. So yeah, they've managed to completely destroy all of that goodwill and that sentiment in literally one blog post,
Wow.
which is impressive, if nothing else. So yeah,
Maybe it has an agenda, so we'll just obviously play it out and wait and see.
pretty much. But yeah, we'll keep everyone updated if there are any changes to what is happening, especially as it relates to the Lords of Light, LOC, or potential other games that the studio may work on.
Cool. Thanks, Marty.
Cool. All right, I'm gonna grab a drink after that one. But yeah, I mean that's so what's been happening this week. Yeah, that's the big thing. Development's still ongoing for mobile and stuff like that. Chris, did you want to give a quick update on how RST is coming along?
Sure. Yeah, so as I've said previously, we've launched the contracts, we've done the initial lockups, we've had the audit completed, we just had the audit updated with to reflect some of the lockups and ensure that it was directed to the mainnet version of the token, not the testnet. Yeah, so that's ready to publish. And I believe our Web3 developers are looking at pushing a bunch of the phase 1 rollout for the Web3/Beam launch of Raini and RTLOL out to the Beam testnet today. The plan is from there. A lot of the time things don't go to plan, but I'm just giving you guys the most up-to-date knowledge with where we're at. If that all goes well, then we will be pushing to mainnet tomorrow, spending a day or two testing, and then aiming to publish a bunch of stuff by the end of the week. As I flagged towards the end of last week, this is phase 1 of the rollout, so we don't want to launch everything all at the same time. We want to give people time to bridge their Rainy across to RST and prepare, and we want to make sure everything's thoroughly tested. So at a bare minimum, it's going to allow you to migrate your Rainy across to RST. We are also looking at doing some staking portals opening up. We're pretty much there for the X-Photon redemption portals. We're pretty close on the RST store page, but that still might be a little bit further down the track. Yeah, so we'll announce all the details as it's ready, but stay tuned. By the end of this week, you should be able to get onto Beam and get things happening, start earning some rainbows and unicorns, and actually start earning some RST. At a bare minimum, it looks like we'll have the LP staking contract online for RST and unicorn earnings, and we'll guide you through how to bridge your assets across. Our devs have made it really easy to get your Rainy migrated across to RST, and fortunately, Merit Circle have created a whole bunch of liquidity pools on Beam to swap your USDC or your USDT or your AVAX to Merit Circle once you get it on Beam. So there's a few ways you can get everything you need there onto Beam and ready to provide liquidity if that's what you want to do.
All the procedures and processes for all that sort of stuff, will we have a summary page somewhere to help people with that? Or is that just something that they've got to work out
absolutely. We'll give, so the Rainy side, we've made it as simple as possible. The stuff that we don't have control of is like more the paired tokens and getting the Merit Circle. So what we'll do is just a very detailed step-by-step guide from like any situation. So if you've got LP on BNB, we'll show you like the recommended route to get it across to Beam and your LP up and running. If you've got it on ETH, we'll do the same thing. And we're going to have the portal on Phantom as well. So we'll take you through it all, and we'll provide a pretty detailed guide, so you don't have to wonder or do any research yourself. Make it as easy as possible.
Yeah, that's excellent. I mean, just
Yep.
gives everyone a base to start with, which is great.
Definitely.
I know
Thanks for that.
on the Rainy.io side of things, the teams like setting up all the front end stuff's being set up really easily. So yeah, the process of like unstaking, moving across, like setting up LPs and stuff should be very, very seamless on there as well, which would be cool.
Yeah, it's more like you were saying, Chris, the stuff that's outside of our general control, the third party things moving your LP across from these chains to Beam, because Beam is relatively new on AVAX as well, isn't it? So yeah, just be
Brand
good
new.
to have those guys. That'd be great.
Yeah, definitely. We'll make sure they're available when it's time to bridge across, and we'll be available if there are any questions, or if you need any help.
Cool. Thank you.
Cool. Other updates are all the prizes now out for all outstanding tournaments. So we're all set now for the World Championships. The Chad Doge card is fully playable in game, including NFT versions. There was a slight bug we had to fix up with that. We are aware some players have had some login issues over the past 48 hours. We're working with our backend manager, or backend service provider, I should say, just to try and help them get to the bottom of that. It's not just affecting us; it's affecting a lot of games at the moment. It's a large backend provider that we use, but they think they're on top of it now. So if you are still running into any issues on Epic, you can actually go in and just verify files. That should hopefully fix up any issues that are still outstanding. But obviously, as always, if you do run into issues, reach out to the team on Discord or Telegram, and we'll take a look. I guess yeah, Draz, any questions for us to go through today, or?
You said all the tournament prizes were out. Did you? Have you been able to get the rewards for season 0 out? I know your top 20 is probably gone. How about all the other soulbound stuff?
Yeah, they'll all get sorted out today, basically. So probably good to update people on that too. 17 out of the 20 people in the top 20 have filled out the form for me, so thank you for that. Basically, we just need everyone in the top 20 to fill out the form, basically saying if they want their prizes to be sent out as on-chain or soulbound rewards, and which wallet they'd like them sent to. And that wallet needs to be linked, obviously, to their player profile so that we know it's their wallet that we're sending prizes to. If we don't hear from the other respondents in the next couple of days, probably by the end of the week, we'll just send the prizes out as soulbound rewards for season 0. But yeah, they'll all be going out by the end of this week, and that will be the soulbound rewards. So basically, top 20 will receive a mixture of both. 21st to 100th will receive some soulbound, some coins and lucks in there, basically for those people as well.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Mike. Okay. Just a few questions. I was just running through them as they come in. Nemesaur had a bunch of questions in the chat. He's asking, what are the real percentage numbers to draw legendaries and myths in the different packs, as the in-game ones are, at least he thinks potentially still wrong.
Yeah, there was an issue where some of the premium packs were showing the same odds as the set packs. That should all be fixed now as well. So if you log in now, you should see all the correct odds showing against all of the packs. We do have that. So the logic under the hood, the actual like percentages of cracking different cards has been correct the whole way through. It was just a visual, like a UI issue that was showing the same for both. But yeah, that should be fixed as of this morning as well.
Okay, cool. When RST, I think, has been answered there by Chris, really. I mean, it's obviously progressing, and something is potentially coming by the end of this week, which is great. There was questions just in the Discord about the new theme decks, because people are getting theme tokens, but obviously a lot of people have already got all the theme decks from season 0. The new theme decks, they are coming potentially after formations?
Yeah, so the current plan is there'll be 4 new team decks that launch alongside formations. They will highlight new mechanics and new, I guess, strategies from the formation set. And then moving forward, as we release other sets as well, the numbers won't always be 4 or 7. That will depend on how many theme decks feel suitable for a given set. Again, keeping in mind the overall design goal of those theme decks to be relatively easy to use and approachable for new players, and as consistent in terms of power curve as possible, to keep all the theme decks roughly matched against each other. But yeah, the plan at this stage will be 4 new theme decks dropping with formations, and then there'll be other ones for future sets as well.
Sorry, mate. Couldn't find that click unmute button. In the Discord, this seems to be a TCG thing, but one of the questions was, if more theme decks are coming, does that mean more factions? I don't have a TCG background, but factions seems to be a thing in TCGs. What is that?
I would assume they're referring to, I guess, what we call tribes. The only tribe we have at the moment would be like elementals. At this stage, there's no plans to drop a tribe specifically in formations. There's enough stuff happening in that set without needing to. So tribes or yeah, stuff like that. It's a good way to sort of link different cards together. It can be a good way for newer players to realize what cards they should be putting in a deck together. You know, even today, if a new player had access to all the cards in, say, Genesis and Tempest, throwing all the elementals in one deck and hitting play is not the worst thing in the world to do. But yeah, at this stage, there won't be any informations. There may be in future sets after that. We're not just going to drop them for no reason. If we're going to do a tribe, it's going to be because there is either a gameplay or a thematic need to do so, basically.
Okay, so basically cards from different color sets and things that sort of complement each other and work together well as a tribe or a faction.
Yeah. Now, having said that, you know, there are plenty of multicolored decks at the moment that are very viable in RTLOL. Formations is definitely going to create some new ones in the mix there as well. We're just not directly going to be linking them together through like an actual tribal keyword. Having said that, you know, if you look at the cards that use like flanking, you look at the cards that use surrounded, so the two main mechanics that you'll see in RTLOL, there's a lot of interactions between them, where you probably want to keep them all sort of together. And again, looking at theme decks could also be a really great way to get an idea of get inspiration for different decks that could be very viable sort of in the meta early on. And then outside of that, it's just a case of exploring. There's 7 different colors. This will be our 3rd major set release. There's a lot of different ways to put all those cards together and see what you can come up with.
Okay, cool. Nemesaur and a bunch of other people, I suppose, were also just asking you some information just about the upcoming World Cup. They sort of said in there that they heard it in an AMA. I haven't seen this though, but the two decks you pick, you have to use for the entire World Cup. Is that accurate?
Not at all.
No, I wouldn't think so.
No. So our tournament rulings are the same as every other tournament we've run. So for example, for event number 1, which is the standard championships, the 2 decks that you use, you're expected to maintain those decks the whole way through that particular tournament. But then event 2, which is also a standard event on the Sunday, you could take 2 completely different decks into that, and that's completely fine. I'll make sure the rulings are clear on the limit page for that. But I mean, yeah, we couldn't expect people to use the same deck the whole way through, because one, you may not have the same theme decks that you have cards for say standard, or you want to use different decks there, and obviously the collectible events would make things a bit different. And if we did that ruling, it would make the open events just the same as standard, basically, because you'd have to use cards that you already own. So yeah,
I'd assume that's just confusion, right? Like we were referring to the fact that you need to use the same 2 decks through the event, not through the entirety of the like through that individual tournament. So we've got like 12 or 13 tournaments or events within the World Championship. If you have 2 decks for the first one, the standard event, which kicks off in about a week and a half, then you have to use that for the entirety of that tournament. But then the next event, which is like a day or 2 later and is standard, you can use 2 different decks.
Actually, I apologize to Nemesaur if this confusion is actually just mine. When what he said is not what I just said. It's possible, but yeah, okay, it was good to have the clarification anyway. So same as normal, pick 2 decks, use them in that one tournament, then the next you could change them to whatever you like, as long as they don't have same cards and all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
So that's pretty standard.
I guess the easy way to think of it, just think of it as if, you know, our regular Blue Mint tournaments that we run, you know, literally every week, we're just doing for the month of October. There's going to be a lot more of them with a lot bigger prize pools than what we normally get to do.
Okay, cool. is just asking also, can you explain exactly how the double elimination system works?
Yep. So yeah, double elimination might be new to some of our players who haven't played in events with other formats before. So traditionally in a single elimination tournament, once you lose your particular round, you are eliminated, your opponent advances through to the next stage. In a double elimination tournament, it's kind of like a second chance tournament. So when a player is defeated in a round for the first time, they drop down into a separate bracket where they'll be playing against other people who have also lost a round. Once you are eliminated from it's referred to as the winners bracket and the losers bracket. Everyone starts in the winners bracket. As you work your way through, if you lose a round, you get knocked down to the losers bracket. Once you lose a game in the losers bracket, you are eliminated. But yeah, and then basically the winner of the winners bracket will play the winner of the losers bracket in the grand final. So it's basically a second chance to prevent yourself from being eliminated. So generally speaking, this should actually only have a drastic effect on events, that it would make them go for maybe 1 or 2 rounds longer overall. Because obviously while the rounds are playing out in the winners bracket, you then have the same rounds playing out in the losers bracket as well. So you don't generally it doesn't add like a drastic amount of time, like a round robin or like a Swiss event would add. But yeah, it does mean if you get an unlucky matchup, if you're paired up, say first round against, Nemesaur or Huncho or something like that, you do still have a chance to, progress through the tournament. You also have a chance theoretically to meet, like you could end up meeting someone in the losers bracket you've already played against, or you could meet, the person who knocks you into the losers bracket in the grand final.
Okay, cool. Thanks for that. Will the seeding be only active for the grand final tournament, or also for the other 12 World Cup tournaments?
No, so seeding will only be for the grand final. For the rest of the tournaments, the seeding will be completely randomized.
Okay.
Obviously, having that double elimination format does help if you do get an unlucky pairing. But unfortunately, when it comes to tournaments and competitive play like this, pairings are, especially in the early stages, are a luck of the draw sort of thing. But yeah, in the grand final itself, we will basically be doing sets like seeds. So the idea would be that if you win multiple events, or if you place highly in multiple events and earn seats, basically you'll have more preferential seating. What that means in reality is those people we put on the opposite corners of the bracket. So we basically do what we can to make sure those people have the least chance of running into each other. And then basically, depending on if you came first in the event, second in the event, and if it's a major or a minor event, we complete the rest of the seating based on that as well. And then, yeah, obviously any remaining seats that don't get allocated because of potential double ups through the initial events, that's where the last chance qualifier comes in. So important to keep in mind that even if you're unlucky, say playing through some of the early events, making through to actually qualify for the grand final, that's why we have the LCQ there as well, to just give players that last chance going into that final weekend.
Okay, cool. He says right now the tournament participants are limited to 64 on Blue Mint. Will that be lifted up? He remembers seeing 512 in another AMA, obviously. But
yep.
So what is currently the planned limit for each event?
Planned limit is 512. Having said that, if we look like we're going to hit that, we'll chat with Blue Mint and we'll look at what we can do to increase that limit. There's no, like, Blue Mint's platform, like their actual technical limitation is like 16,000 people, which we're just not going to hit that for a variety of reasons. But yeah, like the cap of 512 is more there for logistical reasons, to make sure that the tournament can actually run and finish in a time frame that is reasonable for most people. Obviously, with us having a global community, it is something we've got to keep in mind, just given the fact that yeah, like, some of our events will be starting, maybe a nice time for players in the US, but at the same time, that's, the middle of the night for a player in India or Australia or Europe, for example. So yeah, we've tried to spread out the start times of events as much as possible, but we try to make sure that none of the events will go for more than, like, maybe 5-6 hours at the top end.
Sure. Nemesaur seems to be very thorough in, and obviously pretty well everything he does. Maybe it's German heritage, but he's just also saying that the rules for the tournament should be clarified on Blue Mint. Right now, they are unclear. Okay, all right. Yeah, so he's just basically asked if we can just get Blue Mint, I suppose, to update the particulars.
Sure.
Of,
I mean, I know for a fact Nemesaur has my DMs. If there's specific things he's worried about on there, just let me know and I'll take a look.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. How's the localization going?
Yeah, we've extracted all the text out of the game. It's off with one of our localization partners who basically now takes all that text within the context of the game and converts it to the different languages we're targeting. That's the relatively easy part of localization. The hard part is then actually working out how to load that into the game dynamically at runtime. Which again, we've done it before, so it's not a hard thing to do, but it is a time-intensive thing to do. So currently, in terms of the priority listing, it's probably more towards the tail end of the list, with mobile and formations sitting above it at the moment.
Okay, cool. And mobile's coming along nicely.
Yeah, we're actually about to do another playtest right off this AMA.
You did one last week? I think you were saying. Yep.
Yeah, we did some testing last week, primarily on Android. We had some weird bugs we ran into with the iOS tests, just around some Xcode changes for iOS 17. We've got those all resolved now, so that's all good to go. But yeah, we've been doing like actual proper like best of threes and normal games on Android, which is going well. At the moment, there's still some optimization stuff we want to do just around getting it running a bit better on your more low and mid-range Android devices. But we're seeing it, running really nicely on anything released in the last couple of years. You won't have any issues. But obviously, we want to try and make sure we can go as wide as possible, especially on Android. Once that's all done, the thing we're looking specifically at today will be what we call UX flow. So there's some odd things that we need to now take into account now that we're targeting multiple platforms. For example, if someone starts playing on mobile and wants to link across to an Epic account, how do they do that? If someone starts on Epic and wants to then move across to mobile, how do we make sure they're not creating multiple accounts? They're playing with the same account the whole way through. So yeah, that's more the focus moving forward. That and just general optimization.
Is that a difficult thing, that linking up the two versions effectively?
Again, it's not a difficult thing. It's making sure we're doing it in a way that is creating the best user experience for players. For example, like if you say for example yourself, who I know you play on Epic, same as the rest of us do. If when you download the mobile build for the first time, it's like, hey, have you played this before? Yes, sign in with your Epic account and off you go. Cool, that's pretty easy. But what happens if someone says no to that? But then they remember a week later, oh yeah, I did play this on Epic, and they've got every card unlocked on Epic, for example. It's making sure they've got the ability to then link the account. It's making sure as they link the account, they are well aware that by doing so, we will nuke their mobile account. So there's just a lot of things to just check in the user experience to make sure we're getting the messaging correct, to make sure players understand what they're doing at every step of the flow. And then also for ourselves, building some redundancies into the system where if someone does go like, hey, yeah, I'm willing to abandon my mobile account and use my Epic account, what happens when we get the support request a week later going, oh, I didn't realize that it wouldn't combine my cards together or stuff like that? Or should it combine cards together? Like there's just a lot of questions around when you do start targeting multiple platforms, just making sure we're doing it in the best way possible for the player experience.
Yeah, sure. Like I said, just those things you mentioned, there's a lot to consider there, obviously.
Yeah, and then there becomes things like, okay, what happens if we do set up a system to allow you to like merge accounts together, but someone's unlocked the battle pass on both? Like, do we combine XP? Do we not combine XP? What happens to MMR? Like, is there a potential exploit where someone can play a bunch of games on mobile, realize, oh, I'm not doing very well, and then like transfer over to an Epic account and get like a fresh MMR? Like there's a lot of things for us to look at just to make sure that we're doing it in a way that's intuitive and easy to understand and follow for 99% of the player population, but then also making sure for that 1% who's going to try and look for exploits and ways to take advantage of the system, to make sure that we're not leaving ourselves open for that at the same time. So yeah, fun times.
Yeah, indeed. All right. I've just pasted a few questions, Chris, in the chat here from Stoked Fury.
Sure.
You can't obviously answer, I imagine, a lot of these. They've come up in the past, I suppose, about runways and things. But you just have a quick squiz at those and just see if you can sort of just talk to any of that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Look, I've just prepared some stuff because I saw you post them in the comments. So
Sweet, thank
I
you.
can speak at a high level about a few things here. First question is, I'll just post it here. Can the team opine on their current cash runway? How does the new tokenomics extend their monthly net burn rate? I'll say at a high level, we should have enough runway to complete our Web3 rollout, localization to 8 languages, our mobile launch on Android and iOS, and a listing of the token on a centralized exchange. From there, we have enough runway to keep the game operational for quite a long time. But to be honest, we would need to see some level of success from RTLOL in order to cover like significant further investment, like developing further titles or doing some really big expansions to the game, like other game modes or bits and pieces like that. I think we've got a really efficient back office that can keep the game operational and keep new content coming for like some time to give us that breathing room for the game to grow. And I personally think that having seen the history with a lot of other games, especially trading card games, the mobile plus localization can be like big catalysts to a lot of growth. I think a lot of people only play games on mobile, so they're not willing to do the amount of work it takes to play something on a desktop or laptop computer, which is the only option for RTLOL at the moment. So that opens up a huge additional market for us. So that's kind of where we're at in terms of the runway. I guess the next question is more focused on what percentage of the treasury allocation for RST is required to extend the current runway, since it's also being used for centralized exchange listings and marketing. We haven't actually done any planning that involves us selling tokens to extend our runway in the near future. This is not our intention for a Web3 project in the depths of a bear market. I don't think it's a good or sustainable idea to be selling tokens in the current market unless you're absolutely desperate, which we are not. So the treasury allocation is more for the other purposes. So it's like you have to give if you get listed on a centralized exchange, you obviously have to give them a whole bunch of tokens so that they can create the liquidity there. And the second main reason we have the treasury allocation is for strategic partnership incentives. So if we have, whether it's marketing or something else, if we want to have someone who has some skin in the game and aligned incentives and can benefit from any success that the token and the game sees, then we can opt to give them some tokens in exchange for helping us grow the project. In terms of the next thing, I think there was a question about, one second. Yeah. If possible, can you explain how much revenue needs to be generated from on-chain or in-game activities where the token burn would exceed the circulating supply release schedule? We're getting really technical here, but I'm happy to cover that. It really depends on the value of the token and the burn percentage. But to put it simply, if the token is worth 1 cent and we release 5.5% of total supply in a year, that equates to 550,000. If the burn percentage is set to 50%, then you just need to double that. So it would require 1.1 million of RST spent across that entire year to exceed the value of new tokens released to circulating supply. However, that's like a really oversimplified way of doing the math. And it doesn't directly translate to token price impacts because a lot of the people will not just be claiming and selling their RST rewards that are emitted, particularly given the opportunity to stake for ongoing incentives as well as hold for speculation on the future token value. And the calculation is more just based on adoption incentives. There are some unlocks from private investors and team sales and stuff. So that adds some complications. Just to give you like a gauge, I just wanted to do that as like a starting point. And the other thing to factor in here is that the emission schedule is 5 years. After that time, it will become fully deflationary and should hopefully have become self-sustaining, where the tokens we pay out come from transfer fees of the token. Remember, there's like a 1% tax if you sell your RST, like swap it for another token. and the percentage of RST store income that is not being burnt, that can be recycled and emitted back to the community. But yeah, because we will be burning a percentage forever of anything spent in RST, then it'll eventually become deflationary. People can take a longer term view and speculate on the value there, and factor that into the value of the token now or in the short term while it's temporarily, even if it's temporarily inflationary. I hope that all makes sense. It's like a lot of numbers thrown at you. It'd probably be easier to illustrate with a G
A,
sheet or something.
a
But
whiteboard, mate, with some
yeah, yeah. But
get up
anyway,
there. That's all
um,
right.
yeah. Hope
Yeah,
that
no,
gives
that's
like
great.
a starting point to cover off.
Yeah,
Yep. And then the
that
final
Malmac.
question is from Malmac. How confident is the team that their marketing plans will increase the RTLOL player base enough to generate meaningful revenue for Rainy Studios and RST holders? This is the $1 million question. I mean, with any game you develop, especially RTLOL, which we've poured our hearts and souls into, you always hope that it will be successful. And the feedback we've been receiving are that it is a really well polished and fun and engaging and addictive game. But yeah, there's no way to know for sure whether you're gonna be reaching that critical level of success that's required to make a game sustainable, or whether it just never gets off the ground. Some of that is within your locus of control, like in terms of marketing. Some of it is not. Some of it is purely due to market timing and just both in terms of like the Web3 market cycles, but also just in terms of where the interests of the gamers lies, like in terms of genres, and if there's like a competitor that launches at the same time and just kind of captures their attention. In the game world, you are, especially for a free to play game, really competing for the attention of the gamers first and foremost. If you can capture their attention and engagement, then yeah, like Marty said a bunch of times, there are a lot of ways to monetize. So yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see, but we're doing what we can. Um, in terms of like marketing, yeah, as we just posted there, we have been hinting at it for a while, but the latest Kripparrian video that got launched today, Hearthstone Battlegrounds video, has like a more than a minute long like sponsored segment that introduces RTLOL and introduces the World Championship, and provides links in the description. Kripparrian has a huge reach. He's one of the biggest Hearthstone YouTubers and Twitch streamers in the world. And yeah, so we thought it would make sense to post that within one of his Hearthstone videos. So we're keen to see if that translates to more interest, and we'll be clipping the segment and posting on Twitter in case you missed it. Yeah, but that's kind of where we're at.
He is big, isn't he? He's got like 1 million YouTube or 700,000 Twitter or something.
Something like that. He's
A massive
pretty
reach.
pretty
Yeah.
huge. His videos get like tens to hundreds of thousands of views. I think he became really famous when Diablo 3 had uh, recently launched, and before they nerfed the like hardcore top tier difficulty, he took down Diablo with one of his friends. So it was like a world first, and like I think they were the only ones who did it before they nerfed Diablo, and then it wasn't really the same level of success. So that got him a whole bunch of viewers, and from there he just kind of like played Path of Exile and a heap of Hearthstone and just snowballed his audience through consistency. So yeah, now he has a very big reach and a lot of influence in the TCG space because Hearthstone is his main game.
So you guys have been talking to him, obviously person to person sort of thing. Has he given you just an initial impression of what he thinks of the game?
Yeah, he says it in the sponsored thing. He says from what I can see, they've done it really well. So I'm pretty sure Crip doesn't post sponsored segments for games that he doesn't think are up to snuff. So he and his wife Rania have both had a full look through it. We've been back and forth for a few weeks now, working out the best way to approach it. And it was actually his suggestion because we started talking, and he checked out the game and thought it looked good, and we were working out the best way to work together. He honestly said that in his experience, anything with like a Web3 link, if you play it on Twitch, all it takes is like 1 or 2 people who just have a vendetta against Web3 to come in and like ruin the comments and the whole vibe. But on YouTube, it's usually a much better response. So we thought let's try the YouTube angle and see what happens. Yeah, so that went live at 4 a.m. Sydney time today. I think the video's already got like 6,000 or 7,000 views, maybe more by now.
Yeah.
So we're getting some reach there. Yeah, let me just double check.
Do we have a link to that video?
I'll post it in the comments now. Yeah.
It'll be going up on our Twitter as soon
Surely.
as I have a chance to
Sorry.
edit it as well.
Yeah, 15,000 views. It's got he gets a lot of views. So
Yeah. Okay,
there it
cool.
is.
I've posted just a few more of Nemasaur's questions about the tournament just in that chat as well. Just came in through Telegram just for Marty to have a look at if you can at some point. But
Yeah, so yeah, basically everyone who gets eliminated from the winners bracket before the tournament finals will go down to the losers bracket and have a chance to play their way through. But yeah, in a double elimination format, you can choose to either run it as what's called a repechage format or not, which is where in a repechage format, when you play out the finals, if the person who came through the winners bracket loses, you basically replay the finals. The problem with doing that is 90% of the time it plays out to the same results anyway. And it's also just not great from a spectator viewership point of view as well. So yeah, we generally don't run as repechage formats because, and again, also it just adds a whole other round in terms of the timing as well. But yeah, there's plenty of stuff online in terms of how a best of 3 bracket works. And as soon as Blue Mint have their best of 3 stuff set up, we'll get that up and running as well.
okay, cool. I think the most important part of today is it's Zoom VA Chad Rainey.'s birthday.
It is.
It is.
I mean, I'm not going to sing because I don't have. I've got the face for radio, but definitely not the voice.
That's right.
But yeah, big. I mean, I guess not to take away from him, but happy birthday to any of our Rainiverse members who are having a birthday today.
Yeah.
Sangil 축하합니다. It's just Korean for happy birthday. Happy birthday, man.
I was about to say, did you just Google that? Because yeah.
I think he's from India, though. Zoom, isn't he?
Yeah, I just don't know how to speak any language except for English and Korean.
Right.
So
Yeah. Are you actually okay at Korean? Fluent?
I'm getting there. My partner's Korean. My baby's half Korean. So I'm trying to learn before they start having conversations that exclude me. That's the goal.
That's right. Self-preservation.
Good incentive. Yeah, exactly.
All right, cool. That's all the questions I've got at the moment, guys, that I can see here.
Wow, we might actually wrap up an AMA before 11 a.m. for once. So, but yeah, hopefully that was interesting and informative for everyone. Don't forget, only a few weeks out now for the World Championship. So yeah, definitely keep an eye out for all the marketing that'll be stepping up pretty much as of today. But yeah, have a great week, everyone, and we'll catch you back here next Tuesday.
Thanks, guys. See you, everybody.
See you guys.